You guys might have seen Marjorie Taylor Greene's absolute crash out. There's a post that you might have missed that was kind of horrifying and makes me wonder, was Trump right about her all along? Loyalty matters. I want to show you something. So Mike Cernovich, who is, of course, an OG MAGA folk hero, there's going to be a lesson here. He had written a post that thanked Marjorie Taylor Greene for her service, explained all the things that she has done for the betterment of the country to support Donald J. Trump. She was there for the January 6ers when few other people were, the political prisoners, of course. I've become friends with Pat Stedman, somewhat with the lectern guy, famously, Mr. Take a Stand, haha. And having heard their stories and going on the campaign trail with Jack Posobiec last year and meeting all the various Trump characters, we met quite a few wives, mothers, adult children of the political prisoners. That was horrifying. We do, in fact, live in a time and in a place and in a country where we have two standards of justice. But pretty horrifying. You might recall how this book, Unhumans, the New York Times bestseller that I did with Jack Posobiec, Stephen Bannon wrote the foreword to it. And without irony and not as a joke, we wrote about political imprisonment used by left-wing regimes to harm the political opponents, even when they themselves have done the exact same thing and do not prosecute themselves. Bannon reported to prison the week the book launched, where he spent the election season in prison. Guess what else? You don't have to guess. The alleged crime Bannon had committed, the prosecutor had himself done the exact same thing. It was called contempt of Congress, meaning I'm not going to report to you and give testimony under oath, sworn testimony. Bannon refused to do it, and his prosecutor, Biden's boy, had done the exact same thing with zero consequences. Zero consequences. That's what's called friend-enemy distinction. It goes back to the days of Vladimir Lenin, when the Bolsheviks decided that if you committed a crime or did something illegal, if you were a friend of the revolution, you were okay. But you take those crimes, you accuse your opposition. The Mensheviks, who were like the socialists, the sort of a garden variety, let's take this revolution slow, let's take care of the working class, let's not get too crazier. The Bolsheviks are like, blow it up, shut it down, take over everything, burn it all to the ground. BLM riot style, Summer of Love 2020, Floydmas it's called now. And so the Bolsheviks would accuse their opposition of the very crimes they themselves were doing and then prosecute them for it. It was a reign of terror, very much so like the French Revolution. A lot of people who were politically active for Donald J. Trump, myself included, I would say, in 2024, leading up to the presidential election, very much so did fear for our lives. But we felt the fear and did it anyway. This is what I'm teaching my children about courage. It's okay to feel afraid. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Unless, of course, the fear is telling you to do something very specific with urgency. So that's the difference. A vague fear of something bad, terrible could happen versus I feel something is deeply wrong in my gut. I need to leave right now. I need to walk across the street. I need to lock this. I need to turn and walk away. Those sorts of moments that generally the social justice minded will say, no, but that would mean I'm like being a racist or like being a sexist. And then they get set on fire in the subway. It's awful, but that's the time in which we live. You heard about the story, right? Truly terrible. Truly terrible. Now let's come back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. So Cernovich, at the end of his tribute to MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, whom Trump is now calling Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then he went back and said, "Oh, we can get back together. It's fine. I get along with everybody." Incredible content. At the end of his post, Cernovich urged MTG to finish out her term. You should finish. So Marjorie Taylor Greene took a screenshot of that. And then she quote tweeted it saying, this is MTG on X. "Oh, I haven't suffered enough for you while you post all day behind a screen? Do I have to stay until I'm assassinated like our friend Charlie Kirk? Will that be good enough for you then? Shitposting on the internet all day isn't fighting. Get off your ass and run for Congress. I fought harder than anyone in the real arena, not social media. Put down your little pebbles and put your money where your mouth is. Okay, number one, who does that sound like? That sounds like a jilted ex-wife. That's what that sounds like. That's bizarre. How you do anything is how you do everything, by the way. How you do anything is how you do everything. By the way, want to have some fun? Google MTG Tantra Guru. In any case, Cerno said you should finish out your first term. Finish out your term rather than resign in January. Right? That would be, what, to the end of... Yeah, that'd be, what, 10 months longer? Roughly a year longer, I believe. That escalated very quickly. That was passive-aggressive. That was catty. And then she screenshots her quote post of the screenshot of Cernovich. This is like obsessive at this point. And then she quote posts her, so she screenshots herself quote posting Cerno, and then she quote posts her or posts her own screenshot with additional content. Typical of Republican men telling a woman to shut up, get back in the kitchen, and fix me something to eat. F you, and the sweetest most southern drawl I can enunciate. Get back in the kitchen. Mike Cernovich asked her to do the opposite of that. Stay out of the kitchen for another year. She goes on. I've been trying to tell all you men that our kitchen pantry is empty with spider webs. Our house has been ransacked. The windows and doors are broken and busted, and the greedy rich bastards have twisted your minds into a sick state that you all continue. And the two-party toxic political system that acts like college football playoffs yet is burying you and your children and their children and their children in a pine box in a shallow grave. Get off your axe and fix your own damn clean up the kitchen when you're done. Okay. That was interesting. So I felt bad initially for Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then I see this and I no longer feel bad. You know what I feel like saying? Trump was right about her. Does that sound like friend-enemy distinction? Or does that sound like somebody who's taking their ball and going home? Does that sound like somebody who is potentially borderline personality disorder? Girlfriend. I know this is stereotyping here a little bit, but when the man says, I feel like you should do X, and then the girlfriend who he needs to break up with, the wife whom he needs to divorce, how could you blah, 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 and just goes off. Every man who has endured that knows exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly that experience. Wow. I'm not quite sure what to say about this. Other than if you're married to a Marjorie Taylor Greene personality type, I think you should do this. And then this absolute crash out. It's like she's texting and texting and texting and texting him. She's not texting him directly. He spoke to her directly, but she's passive-aggressively screenshotting and then screenshotting herself. And then, wow, was Trump right about Marjorie Taylor Greene? Do I need to get the Trump was right about everything hat? I am disturbed at this point. So is there anything to take away from this? Yes, I think there is. What would have been the dignified way for Marjorie Taylor Greene to handle this? After she was called Marjorie Taylor Greene, that was probably... Actually, no. You know what she did first, I think, passive-aggressively? Remember she started posting screenshots of her messages with Donald J. Trump? The President of the United States text messages? Now, as far as I know, it was only her text messages to him. That is so over the line. Friend-enemy distinction. Is that what a friend does? Does a friend screenshot your text messages, your private text messages, even if it's just from them, because it has read receipts, right? Do you leak the private communications of the President of the United States and say, why won't you do what I want? But that's how this all started, by the way. She was blasting him about the Epstein files and whatnot. Is that what you do? Is that what a friend does, or is that what an enemy does? Is that what opposition media does, or is that what a friend does? I rest my case. What would have been the correct thing to do? J.D. Vance has had a number of disagreements with President Donald J. Trump recently, publicly. But do you notice the way J.D. Vance will, he'll do this. It's a fantastic, I think, a lawyer trick, lawyer sleight of hand. I've ghostwritten for maybe 10 lawyers at this point on various things from business and contract law to IP and divorce and family and domestic relations and whatnot. The skilled lawyer will take two things that seem to be at odds with each other, a thesis and antithesis, and they will come up with the synthesis. So they will say, I know it sounds, it may sound at first to you like X and minus X, but have you considered Y? And they will come up with this narrative that goes, oh, wow. So these two positions aren't at odds with each other. J.D. Vance was fantastic at doing that on the campaign trail when a journalist would try a gotcha. You said this recently, or while I was there. President Trump just said this yesterday. And then they would hand him the mic. Right? Gotcha. What would our favorite vice president do? 48, we're calling J.D. Vance. By the way, he has the highest approval rating of any politician in America. Senator Chuck Schumer is the lowest. I wonder where MTG falls. Well, that's an absolute crash out. Is that what a friend does or what an enemy does? I have seen behind the scenes vicious disagreements between the people of MAGA, Trump world. Both elected and the unelected who are influencers, change makers even, policy promoters, skilled propagandists even. Propaganda is not a four-letter word, by the way. Not a four-letter word. Vicious disagreements. But do they ever, the ones with integrity, who understand friend-enemy distinction, do they ever bring it public? No. Never. The reason I am boosting the Adam Townsend signal about Vivek Ramaswamy's potential fake campaign, dare I say, is because I'm a friend. And what I suspect here is that Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign for governor of Ohio for 2026 does not fit the criteria of friend. We are suspicious. We're very suspicious. In any case, what do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene ought to have done? She had a big disagreement over the Epstein list. What was the right thing to do? You let me know in the comments.